Hey everyone, Fabio here again at Nuketown Studios, and today we are going to go back into mix prep mode. I've done a couple videos already on how you should be preparing your files for mixing if you're an artist or a producer. And today we're going to dive into Pro Tools. So if you're producing on Pro Tools, you might want to stick around. I will be following sort of like the same bullet points that I have in my free mix prep guide. So if you want to get that as well and follow along, feel free to do that. But basically, it's all about Pro Tools. So I have a session pulled up here. It's a done production, and we're just going to dive right in and see how this should be prepared for mixing. All right, so here's the session. It's pretty straightforward. There's some programmed drums, there's programmed bass, guitars, some piano stuff, some like orchestral things, but like programmed orchestral things, and a few layers of vocals, and that's it. So first things first, the first thing that I mentioned that should be done always is to bounce a rough mix. So right as the session is, I'm just gonna do a quick selection here and bounce a mix. I'm gonna call this 00, the name of the song, the name of the band, and then rough. I export this as wave, 24-bit, no MP3 needed, and that is it. So I'll do a quick bounce. All right, so the bounce is done. Now we go on to the next step, which is to do a save as. If you're on Apple, it could be a Control-Command-S, and I'm just gonna keep the same naming. I'll just do MTK prep. Boom. So now I know that I can go back to wherever the session was before I started prepping up. Now, just a quick overview. You can see there's some drum tracks here that are being fed by this contact plugin here with the Modern Massive. And then I have all my MIDI stuff up here. I already separated. I like to do that where I have one track that has all the drums when I was programming, and then I like to break out all the kicks, all the snares, the shells, and then the cymbals separately, just in case. Most likely when I'm mixing, I like to do like spikes, and I already have a system for that implemented in my template, and some other people like to do that as well. So in the case, I'm making their life easier. It's already there. So we're gonna have to deal with these guys here. I also have programmed bass, and then guitars have a few playlists. So as far as routing goes, everything is pretty much where I want it, which is just going to the main master out. I don't have any buses going on, so that makes my life easier. My next step would be to just level out all the tracks and just to see what sort of levels I'm dealing with. I don't even need to hear anything at this point. It's just to see where things are peaking, and if anything is a bit too loud and needs to be turned down. At the end stage, everything seems to be hovering between 15. Some of the guitars are a little higher, but they're not clipping, which is fine. So I'll just keep things there as they are. Then this is where I would start committing plugins and figuring that sort of stuff out. So for example, here I have the drums. They're being fed by MIDI, so I definitely want to print that at least as a reference, even if I run from the MIDI when I'm mixing, which would probably be the case in this song, but I still want to have some reference audio tracks in case like someone else ends up mixing this. They can have a reference point or a starting point at least. We'll commit this one as well. we can actually already start getting rid of unused playlists. Let's see, yeah, everything, like processing wise, everything that's there I'm gonna keep. So I'm going to make a selection like that. Yeah, there we go. And then commit. And for now, I'm just going to make the other ones hide and make inactive. So right away, what that's doing is just basically bouncing down all the plugins. Any sort of automation that could have been in the session, there aren't any in this case, but if there were, they would be bounced down. And we're just making sure that anything sound-wise that we want to keep is going to be within the submission folder. Sweet. So now that this is done, you can see there's a little CM here on every track. Those are the committed tracks. For a few of the things, I'm going to rename, because the next step is to sequence and rename. Things are already in the sequence that makes sense to me, so I don't need to mess with that too much. But I do want to rename some of these and actually number these tracks. All the drums are fine. I want to rename this guy to bass DI. I'm going to leave the commit for now. And then these guitars, I can even switch up the naming convention. All right, so guitars are renamed. Piano, piano 2, these all have good names to me, so I'll keep them like that. Actually, these guys, I'm gonna get rid of the /mm, so I can go batch rename and then just get rid of that. Boom. And okay, so the other thing is this guy, I'm going to do that, get rid of this plugin, and bring it together here with the other MIDI stuff. I'm going to rename this one, rename bass MIDI. All right, yeah, this can go away. Then what else? Oh yeah, the guitar stuff. So these are the printed guitar tones. I want to keep the DIs as well for all of these. So I'm just going to make everything active and then get rid of any plugins and then rename these guys to be the DI stuff. So let's see, solo, piano. So now I have all the drums, I have all the MIDI, I have my bass MIDI track. I'm going to rename this clip as well. DI, yes. Everything is looking in order. The next stop would be to do markers, which I already have. You can see here there are arrangement markers everywhere. If you wanted to do these, you just go here where markers and then click there, or you click enter on the numpad. It will also set a marker wherever your cursor is, like that, or wherever the playhead is. And the next step here would be to actually create a MIDI track. Yeah, there you go, MIDI track, and call it tempo map and markers. Markers, and drop a note in each marker. So it doesn't matter which note it is, as long as you have a note And that the reason you do that is just because it makes it very easy for anyone that's dealing with your session to drop in their markers in case like by any reason it doesn't go through, which can happen sometimes. Some DWs, looking at Logic, will have that issue where like it doesn't really import the whole thing. Like it imports the tempo but not the markers, or vice versa. Cool, and then you can just go select the whole thing, Shift Option 3 to create to like merge all of these. Again, this is something that if you have MIDI in Pro Tools, you don't really need to do this because it already sorts out your issue. But if you don't have any MIDI information, you might want to do this in order to carry the markers and all of that, because you want to export a tempo map that someone can just drop into their DAW and just work, you know? Cool, so next step now is actually to export stuff. So since we have all of this sorted out, everything is already bounced. Essentially what we're going to do is select all of these tracks, all the audio tracks. Oh, wait, fuck, I forgot to number stuff. You want to grab all of these, you go batch rename, and then you can add actually numbering. So you go at the beginning and starting number 1 and separate with a underscore. Then you press OK. It's going to drop in a number on each track. And then for the tracks 1 to 9, I would just also go with the batch rename and add a 0 in front as a prefix. You can untick this just so they're all like 2 numbers. If it was a session that I had like, I don't know, over 100 tracks, I would have 3 numbers for everything, just for consistency's sake. Right, now that everything is well in place, we're going to select all the tracks that we want to export. And also we want to make sure we have the time selection right here. I'm just going to go a little over. And we just export these. So we do, again, the Shift Option 3. That's going to consolidate every track. And then you can use that because any plugins or anything in that regard is already sorted. So when you do this, it will just render all the tracks from like within this time selection, and you can just pick up those. It will also name your file according to your track, which really helps. As you can see, they're all named correctly. And we have a good session to start with. It's carrying over the .cm. That's not really a big issue. You can always just delete that later on. Now, the other important step is to carry over this time selection, select all your MIDI tracks, and then you can go here, export MIDI. We're gonna go with this multi-track format and OK, and we're going to find our folder. So in this case, I'm already going to create the submission folder, if you will. It's going to be called B&W Way. The song is 182 BPM and it's in C#. Cool. This is going to be called 00 Fading Away MIDI. Cool. So the MIDI is exported. Now the last couple steps are to just go here. I'll just open this in a second tab. I'm going to go into audio files here from Pro Tools within your session and date modified. So all of these that were exported at the same time. They're all here. I'm just going to make sure to select all of these, copy and paste them into my submission folder. Sweet, it's all there. Then last but not least, I'm going to go here and also copy over the rough mix. And we are done. You just want to make sure that everything is looking good here on your end. If you want to go a step further, you can always grab all of these tracks if you're on in a Mac and rename, like batch rename them essentially. And here we want to get rid of the .cm_01. It should sort it right out, and it's all nicely named. Now this is a done folder. You can zip this up, send it to your mixing engineer, and they will be ready to get mixing. So I hope you liked this video. Let me know what you think. I think this was a little bit of a longer one than usual, but yeah, see you around.